Hidden beneath the sands of Egypt, whispered through Greek temples, and preserved in fragments of alchemical lore, lies the story of a figure who shaped the very foundation of civilization. Thoth, the god of wisdom, the scribe of the gods, the keeper of secrets. Some called him Hermes, others said he was immortal, returning across the ages in different forms. Legends claim he carved indestructible tablets that contained the very laws of reality principles that could unlock the mysteries of creation, the rhythm of time, and even the secrets of life after death. But were these merely myths? Or do they conceal a blueprint for the human spirit? What if death itself is not an end but a doorway? What if consciousness, guided by the very laws Thoth inscribed, can survive, return, and awaken across lifetimes? This is not just the story of a god from the past. It is the story of us, of you. And if you dare to walk this path, the wisdom once hidden in temples and tablets can become alive in your own life. When we think of gods of the ancient world, most appear frozen in myth, trapped inside old statues or the brittle pages of history. They are stories we study from a distance, not presences that breathe through the ages. But Thoth is different. He is not only a god of Egypt, he is a current, a whisper, an intelligence that seems to weave its way through time itself. He has been called many names: Jehudi by the Egyptians, Hermes by the Greeks, Mercury by the Romans, Hermes Trismegistus by the Hermetic philosophers. But behind all those masks, there is a single idea: the archetype of wisdom, the keeper of law, the architect of consciousness. In the temples along the Nile, Thoth was not simply honored as a moon god who marked the passing of days and nights. He was the one who measured existence itself. His hieroglyph, the ibis, often shown with a crescent on its head, carried more than artistic meaning. It symbolized precision, balance, the ability to see reflections clearly. The moon reflects the sun's light into the darkness. Likewise, Thoth was believed to reflect divine wisdom into the human world. His role was not passive. He was the scribe of the gods, the one who recorded the words of Ra, the one who set in order the measurements of heaven and earth. To call him a god of writing undersells his importance. Writing in ancient Egypt was not merely administrative record-keeping. It was magic. Words were considered alive, carriers of power. To inscribe a thought in stone or papyrus was to breathe permanence into it, to anchor spirit into matter. In this way, Thoth gave humanity a new faculty, memory outside the body, thought that could travel through time. When a king wanted his achievements remembered for millennia, it was Thoth's gift of writing that allowed it. When priests wanted to preserve sacred rituals with precision, it was Thoth's hand guiding the scribe's reed. Every library, every book you have ever opened, every note you have ever written, these are echoes of his original gift. But Thoth's presence was not limited to the scribal halls. In the great myth of the afterlife, he is shown standing beside the scales in the Hall of Amenti, recording the fate of each soul. Imagine the scene: a human heart placed on one side of a balance, a feather the symbol of truth on the other. If the heart was light, free of lies and cruelty, the soul passed on to paradise. If it was heavy with wrongdoing, it was devoured by Ammit, the eater of souls. And who wrote down this eternal verdict? Thoth. Not as a judge, but as the recorder of truth, the keeper of the cosmic ledger. He did not punish or reward. He ensured the law was honored. Without his hand, the scales meant nothing. With him, the law of Ma'at became binding. This is the deeper role of Thoth, not merely as a figure of worship, but as the guarantor of cosmic order. Without him, the universe dissolves into chaos. With him, there is measurement, rhythm, law. This is why he is also linked to the moon that regulates tides, governs fertility, sets the calendar. He is timekeeper, astronomer, mathematician. He ensures that rituals fall on the right days, that temples align with stars, that civilization itself remains in sync with the heavens. The Greeks, recognizing something familiar in this figure, equated him with Hermes. But Hermes was more than just a messenger. He was the trickster, the guide of souls, the one who could cross boundaries between worlds. When merged with Thoth, Hermes took on a greater gravity, becoming Hermes Trismegistus Hermes the thrice great. The three referred to mastery over three realms: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. And so the Hermetic tradition was born, carrying with it teachings that would shape alchemy, Renaissance philosophy, and even modern science. Perhaps the most famous saying attributed to this tradition is, "As above, so below." We often treat it like a fortune cookie phrase, but it is far more. It describes a principle of resonance that runs through all reality. The stars and galaxies above mirror the atoms and cells below. The patterns of thought within us mirror the structures of society around us. To change one is to ripple into the other. Imagine what this means. Your inner world is not isolated. It is a lever for the outer. Transform your consciousness, and the universe itself responds. But such teachings are dangerous when misunderstood. To a wise soul, they are tools of harmony. To a tyrant, they are instruments of control. This is why Thoth's wisdom was never left unguarded. It was hidden in temples, encoded in myths, written in symbols that only initiates could decode. Knowledge of vibration, polarity, rhythm, causation, these were not trivia, they were power. And power could build or destroy. Even so, fragments of Thoth's wisdom slipped into every culture. The Greeks developed geometry, which echoes the sacred ratios embedded in Egyptian temples. The Romans preserved Mercury as a god of communication and commerce. Jewish mystics spoke of Enoch transforming into Metatron, a divine scribe who bears eerie resemblance to Thoth. Renaissance thinkers studied Hermetic texts as if they were keys to unlock nature itself. And modern science, though it denies the mythic frame, continues to rediscover principles Thoth taught millennia ago. We see his fingerprints everywhere, if we know how to look. In the architecture of the pyramids, aligned to Orion's belt. In the rhythm of chants and mantras, echoing the principle of vibration. In the design of the tarot, filled with Hermetic symbolism. In the alchemist's quest to transmute lead into gold, which was always less about metal than about the transmutation of the self. Thoth is there, hidden in plain sight. So when we call him the forgotten architect, it is not that he is absent. It is that we no longer recognize his design. We live inside his architecture without seeing the blueprint. The laws of correspondence, polarity, rhythm, and causation are still shaping our lives. The challenge is not to invent them, but to remember them, to live with awareness rather than ignorance. And this memory leads us to the heart of the mystery. The Emerald Tablets, the legendary writings of Thoth himself. Some say they were physical tablets of green stone, inscribed with indestructible letters. Others say they were symbolic, a way of describing timeless wisdom. Whatever their form, their content was said to hold the distilled essence of all Hermetic teaching laws that explain the nature of reality, the immortality of the soul, and the path to mastery. To study the tablets is to step into the workshop of the ancient mind. Here, law is not imposed from outside but discovered within. Here, consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the source of it. Here, death is not the end, but a doorway. The tablets are not simply about knowledge, they are about transformation. The story of Thoth, then, is not a tale of a long-dead god, but the opening of a door. It is the story of how wisdom has been preserved, scattered, and rediscovered across ages. It is the story of how reality is structured, not arbitrarily, but lawfully. And it is the story of how you too can enter that structure not as a victim of fate, but as a participant in creation. This is why we begin with the forgotten architect. Before we can understand the laws, the tablets, or the mysteries of death, we must first remember who built the framework we live within. And in remembering him, we prepare ourselves to read the inscriptions he left behind. Legends whisper of them in fragments, indestructible slabs of green fire, etched with words that no age could erase. They are called the Emerald Tablets, the supposed legacy of Thoth himself. Some say they were hidden deep beneath the pyramids, others that they were spirited away to Atlantis before its fall, and still others that they never existed in stone at all, but were instead a code, a metaphor, a living teaching that could only be unlocked by the prepared mind. What matters is not the physical form of these tablets, but the principles they carry. Their teachings are said to condense the architecture of the cosmos into a handful of laws, laws so simple they can be memorized, yet so profound they explain everything from the spin of an atom to the spiral of galaxies. These laws are not commandments issued by a distant deity. They are descriptions of how reality works. Just as gravity pulls a stone to earth whether you believe in it or not, so too do these laws operate on your consciousness, whether you acknowledge them or ignore them. The first of these is the principle of mentalism. All is mind. The universe itself is mental, a creation of consciousness. To modern ears, this sounds like mysticism, but think carefully. Every invention, every city, every work of art began as a thought. The chair you sit on began as an idea. The phone in your hand began as imagination. Mind precedes matter. Thought is the seed, matter the blossom. If this is true on a human scale, why not on a cosmic one? What if the universe itself is the thought of a vast intelligence? The second is the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. The same patterns repeat across scales. Look at an atom with electrons spinning around its nucleus. Then look at a solar system with planets circling a Sunday. The microcosm and the macrocosm echo each other. This is not poetry, it is structure. And the correspondence applies not only to matter but to mind. Your inner state mirrors your outer experience. Shift the inner, and the outer must eventually follow. The third is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves. From the hum of subatomic particles to the orbits of galaxies, all existence vibrates. Even thought vibrates, measurable in the rhythms of the brain. Emotions carry frequency. Fear is heavy and slow. Love is light and quick. By shifting your vibration, you shift your reality. That is why chants, mantras, music, and even words themselves carry power. They tune your frequency. The fourth is the principle of polarity. Everything has its opposite, and opposites are the same in nature but different in degree. Heat and cold are not separate things. They are variations of temperature. Light and darkness are variations of illumination. Love and hate are variations of intensity. To understand polarity is to unlock transformation. You do not destroy fear. You transmute it into courage by shifting its polarity. You do not erase ignorance. You transform it into wisdom by sliding along the same continuum. The fifth is the principle of rhythm. Everything flows in cycles. Day follows night. Inhale follows exhale. Tides rise and fall. History itself swings like a pendulum between ages of light and ages of shadow. To ignore rhythm is to be tossed about by change. To master rhythm is to ride the cycles. To know that what descends will rise again. That no winter is permanent, that no storm is forever. The sixth is the principle of cause and effect. Nothing happens by chance. Every event is the result of a chain of causes, and every cause will create effects. Most people live as pawns, reacting blindly to effects. The initiate learns to become a player, initiating causes with awareness. To step into mastery is to shift from being acted upon to acting deliberately. The seventh is the principle of gender. Everything has masculine and feminine principles, not in terms of biology, but in terms of energy. Masculine energy is active, projective, directive. Feminine energy is receptive, nurturing, creative. The seed and the soil, the spark and the flame, both are necessary for creation, and both exist within every person, every system, every phenomenon. To neglect one is to create imbalance. To integrate both is to embody wholeness. Taken together, these laws form a blueprint of reality. They are not abstract philosophy. They are practical tools. The alchemists of the Middle Ages studied them in secret, believing they were the key to turning lead into gold. And while some obsessed over literal metals, the true adepts understood. The gold was enlightenment. The lead was ignorance. The laboratory was the self. By applying Hermetic principles, they sought to transmute the dense and base into the luminous and eternal. Consider how these principles echo through modern science. The principle of vibration resonates with quantum physics, which shows that everything is energy in motion. The principle of correspondence mirrors systems theory, which finds repeating patterns across biology, ecology, and sociology. The principle of polarity echoes in psychology, where Carl Jung spoke of integrating shadow and light, animus and anima. Even neuroscience reveals how mental patterns create feedback loops that shape reality, the mind sculpting the brain reinforcing the mind. But the Emerald Tablets do not stop at these 7 principles. They also hint at mysteries beyond, especially concerning time, death, and consciousness itself. One passage speaks of time as the moving image of eternity, suggesting that time is not a straight line but a spiral, with layers upon layers. Another hints at the Halls of Amenti, a hidden realm where masters dwell, free of decay, returning to guide humanity when the need is greatest. Skeptics dismiss these as allegory, but even as allegory they carry weight. The idea of time as layered challenges our linear obsession. The concept of the Halls of Amenti suggests that wisdom is never lost, only hidden, awaiting rediscovery. The idea that consciousness can persist beyond the body invites us to reconsider what we mean by life and death. There is also the question of origin. Where did these tablets come from? Some legends say they were brought from Atlantis, preserved by survivors of a great cataclysm. Others say Thoth himself inscribed them and sealed them beneath the Great Pyramid, hidden until humanity reached sufficient maturity. Still others argue they are purely symbolic, invented by later Hermetic philosophers to encode their teachings. Perhaps all 3 are true. Myths have a way of holding multiple truths at once. What is undeniable is their influence. Renaissance thinkers like Marsilio Ficino and Giordano Bruno studied Hermetic texts, believing them to be ancient Egyptian wisdom. Isaac Newton himself, the very emblem of modern science, translated the Emerald Tablet and studied alchemy in secret. Even today, new thought movements, esoteric schools, and self-help philosophies echo Hermetic principles in new language. Thoughts become things. What you focus on expands. Energy flows where attention goes. These are modern mantras of ancient laws. But here lies the danger. When simplified, the principles become cliches. Positive vibes only. Manifest your dreams. Stripped of depth, the laws become slogans, divorced from the discipline, ethics, and humility they require. Thoth's teachings were never meant for instant gratification. They were a path of mastery, demanding patience, practice, and alignment with truth. To misuse them was to invite imbalance, perhaps even destruction. That is why they were hidden, protected, revealed only to the prepared. The tablets, whether physical or symbolic, are less about possession and more about transformation. You do not own them by holding them. You own them by embodying them. The true emerald is not stone but consciousness, polished through practice until it reflects divine light without distortion. And so, Section 2 leaves us at a threshold. We have moved from the architect who designed the framework to the laws that animate it. But there is still a deeper mystery. The tablets speak not only of principles for living, but of secrets about dying. They suggest that death itself is not final, that the soul can journey through realms, return, and even choose new lives. If this is true, then the most terrifying boundary death is not a wall but a doorway. And that doorway leads us directly into the next stage of our story. Death. It is the boundary that frames our lives, the one certainty no culture has ever been able to ignore. From the moment we are born, we are aware dimly at first, then with growing clarity that our days are numbered. The body will falter, breath will cease, and the mind we cling to will dissolve into silence. For most, death is the ultimate end. For Thoth, it was the beginning of the greatest mystery. In the myths of Egypt, Thoth stands beside the scales in the Hall of Ma'at, where the heart of the deceased is weighed against the feather of truth. We imagine this as morality theater, but the symbolism runs deeper. The heart in Egyptian thought was not simply an organ pumping blood, it was the seat of consciousness, memory, and intention. To weigh the heart was to measure the vibrational state of the soul. Was it heavy with falsehood, cruelty, and regret? Or was it light, aligned with truth, balance, and harmony? Thoth, as the scribe, recorded this judgment. He did not decide it. He bore witness to the law of resonance. What you carry within determines where you will go next. This imagery foreshadows what the Emerald Tablets claim outright, that death is not an annihilation, but a transition. Just as ice melts into water and water vaporizes into steam, the soul shifts form when it leaves the body. Consciousness does not cease, it changes state. The body falls away like clothing discarded, but the essence remains, seeking the next stage of its journey. The Egyptians were meticulous about preparing for this passage. Tombs were not houses of death, but portals of continuity. The Book of the Dead, misnamed by modern scholars, was actually the Book of Coming Forth by Day, a guidebook for navigating the afterlife. Priests chanted spells, painted maps on tomb walls, and placed amulets upon the deceased, not because they believed in superstition, but because they believed in law. Just as a sailor needs a compass and star charts to cross the sea, so too does the soul need orientation to cross the threshold of death. Thoth was the navigator, the cosmic cartographer. He gave humanity the maps, the chants, the practices to remember themselves even as the veil of physical existence fell away. And what those teachings reveal is staggering. Not only can consciousness survive death, it can return. Reincarnation, or the rebirth of the soul into new bodies, was not a fringe belief in the ancient world. It was central. Egyptians, Greeks, Hindus, Buddhists all spoke of the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Karma was not punishment, but curriculum. What was unfinished in one life became the lesson of the next. Patterns repeated until mastered. Imagine school. If you fail to understand arithmetic, you repeat the lesson. If you ignore compassion, life will return you to situations where compassion is demanded, not as cruelty, but as opportunity. But Thoth's writings suggest something even more radical: the possibility of memory across lifetimes. The Emerald Tablets describe the Halls of Amenti, a realm beyond death where the souls of the wise dwell, free from decay. There, masters rest between incarnations, retaining their knowledge, and return when humanity is ready for guidance. They are described as deathless ones, beings who have stepped beyond the cycle of blind rebirth and chosen instead to reincarnate consciously, carrying wisdom from age to age. Could Thoth himself have been such a being? Some legends say yes. To the Egyptians, he was divine. To the Greeks, Hermes. To early mystics, Enoch, who became Metatron, scribe of the heavens. To the Hermeticists, he was Hermes Trismegistus, the teacher of alchemy and philosophy. Perhaps Thoth was not one man but a presence, a consciousness that appeared in different guises across centuries, carrying the same thread of wisdom. Modern science, though cautious, is beginning to brush against these ideas. Studies of near-death experiences show consistent themes: movement through tunnels of light, encounters with deceased relatives, panoramic life reviews where every action and intention is felt in full. Skeptics call these hallucinations. Yet the patterns are striking. Thousands of testimonies across cultures describe the same landscape. If these are hallucinations, why are they so consistent? Even more compelling are the cases of children who recall past lives with startling accuracy. In India, Tibet, and even the West, young children sometimes speak of previous families, previous deaths, details later verified as true. Researchers like Dr. Ian Stevenson documented hundreds of such cases, many with physical birthmarks matching fatal wounds of the remembered life. These are anomalies the materialist worldview cannot easily explain. And then there is consciousness itself, the great riddle of neuroscience. The brain is physical, yes, but awareness remains elusive. No scan, no chemical equation explains why experience exists at all. Some scientists now entertain the idea that consciousness may not be produced by the brain, but filtered through it as light passes through a prism. If so, then when the brain dies, consciousness may not vanish, but simply return to its larger field. What does all this mean for us, living now, walking through ordinary days? If death is not the end, fear loses its grip. If reincarnation is real, responsibility deepens your actions ripple not only through this life, but into lifetimes to come. If mastery is possible, then life is not random struggle but a training ground, a school for the soul. Thoth's teachings on death are not meant to fill us with fascination alone. They are meant to produce courage. To know that life continues is to shift how you live now. Would you cling so tightly to possessions if you knew you would release them anyway? Would you treat others with cruelty if you knew their eyes may meet yours again in another life? Would you waste years in distraction if you knew every thought and action inscribes your soul, carried with you beyond the grave? The master, according to Thoth, does not wait passively for death. He rehearses it. He practices leaving the body in meditation, loosening the tether of the senses, learning to navigate the inner realms while still alive. In this way, death becomes familiar, not frightening. When the final breath comes, it is not a rupture, but a continuation of a journey already traveled. This practice was echoed in Tibet, where monks developed the Bardo Thodol, or Tibetan Book of the Dead, a guide to navigating consciousness after death. It was echoed in Greece, where initiates of the Eleusinian mysteries underwent rituals simulating death and rebirth. It was echoed in shamanic traditions worldwide, where practitioners journey beyond the body in trance. All of these echo Thoth's path. Death is not to be feared, but understood, rehearsed, mastered. And yet, mastery is not about escaping death forever. It is about aligning with its law. Everything changes. Everything transforms. The body must die so that the soul may move forward. Even stars explode, seeding galaxies with new life. Death is not an end, but a rhythm, part of the great cycle. To resist it is to suffer. To understand it is to be free. Here, then, lies the radical promise. If we can face death without fear, we can live life without restraint. If we can understand reincarnation as curriculum, we can face challenges as lessons, not curses. If we can glimpse the continuity of consciousness, we can act with compassion, humility, and courage, knowing that nothing is wasted. And so the Emerald Tablets lead us deeper still. They speak of the soul as eternal, of wisdom preserved across lifetimes, of masters who choose to return to guide humanity. They invite us not to cling to this fleeting body, but to cultivate the consciousness that endures. But the tablets do not stop at description. They offer practice ways to align with these truths, to live them, to test them. They tell us not only what is, but how to embody it. And that brings us to the final stage of our journey. How we, in the modern world, can reclaim these practices, not as myths of the past, but as living tools for transformation. We have walked with the architect of civilization, traced the laws carved upon the tablets, and peered into the mystery of death and reincarnation. Now the question presses close, urgent, personal. What does this mean for us? These are not just stories to be admired from afar. If Thoth's wisdom is to matter, it must be lived. It must enter the pulse of our daily existence in our breath, our thoughts, our relationships, our choices. Thoth did not write for scholars locked in dusty chambers. He wrote for seekers, for initiates, for ordinary people willing to step onto the path of transformation. The tablets are not merely to be studied, they are to be practiced. And while the practices may appear shrouded in allegory, their essence is surprisingly practical, even in the modern world. Let us begin with the principle of mentalism. All is mind. If reality is shaped first in thought, then the discipline of thought is the first step. But this is no call for shallow, positive thinking. It is a call for clarity. How many thoughts race through your mind each day? Most are recycled noise worries, judgments, distractions. To live as Thoth intended is to become conscious of thought itself, to witness the stream rather than drown in it. Ancient initiates practice meditation to still the mind and observation to clarify it. In today's world, the practice may begin as simply as noticing your thoughts, asking, do these thoughts align with the reality I wish to create? Or do they perpetuate fear, limitation, and fragmentation? By choosing which seeds to water, you begin to cultivate a mind aligned with truth. The principle of correspondence as above, so below calls us to recognize patterns. Look at your life as a mirror. The outer reflects the inner. If chaos reigns outside, where does chaos live within? If conflict erupts in relationships, what unresolved polarity sits unacknowledged in your heart? The practice is reflection. Journal your experiences, not as random events, but as correspondences. Ask, what is this showing me about myself? Slowly, the veil lifts, and you begin to see the symmetry. Your life is your teacher, your mirror, your curriculum. The principle of vibration demands a tuning of frequency. Ancient Egyptians used chants, intonations, and sacred sound to align with higher states. Today, we may experiment with breath, with music, with words. Notice how certain songs lift your spirit while others drag it down. Notice how one angry word can sour a room, while one sincere blessing can shift the atmosphere. You vibrate with every thought, every emotion, every action. The practice is awareness of resonance. Speak words that uplift, breathe in rhythm, cultivate gratitude. These are not sentimental habits, but vibrational technologies. By tuning your frequency, you change the reality you inhabit. The principle of polarity offers the alchemist's art, transmutation. Instead of battling against the emotions you fear, you learn to shift them along their continuum. Anger is intensity of energy. Turned, it can become passion for justice. Fear is awareness of danger. Transmuted, it becomes heightened perception and courage. Sadness is depth of feeling. Refined, it becomes compassion. The practice is to ask, whenever an emotion grips you, on what continuum does this lie? And how might I shift it toward its higher octave? In this way, nothing is wasted. Every shadow becomes raw material for transformation. The principle of rhythm calls for attunement to cycles. The ancients lived by the rising and setting of stars, by the flooding of the Nile, by the waxing and waning of the moon. Today we drown in artificial schedules, ignoring natural rhythm. But rhythm is still there, waiting to be remembered. The practice is to live seasonally, to notice your personal tides. There are days of expansion and days of retreat, hours of clarity and hours of rest. By honoring rhythm instead of resisting it, you find flow. Instead of burning out, you move with the current of life itself. The principle of cause and effect teaches responsibility. Every thought, every word, every action ripples outward. To live unconsciously is to be buffeted by effects you do not understand. To live consciously is to choose causes deliberately. The practice is intentional action. Pause before you speak, before you act, before you decide. Ask, what effect will this cause set into motion? Does it align with the reality I seek to build? Slowly, you move from pawn to player, from reaction to creation. The principle of gender reveals the need for balance. In each of us live both masculine and feminine energies, the drive to act and the openness to receive, the impulse to create and the patience to nurture. In the modern world, imbalance is everywhere, domination of one polarity over the other. The practice is integration. If you are all action, learn stillness. If you are all receptivity, learn initiative. In relationship, honor both polarities as sacred. When the masculine and feminine dance in harmony, creation flourishes. These are not theories to be admired from a distance. They are invitations to practice. Imagine if each morning you attuned your mind, observed correspondences, tuned your vibration, transmuted polarity, aligned with rhythm, chose causes wisely, and balanced energies. Life would cease to feel random. Challenges would reveal themselves as lessons. Death itself would appear as a transition, not a terror. But Thoth's path goes further. Beyond daily practice lies the deeper work of initiation. In the ancient temples, initiates were guided through stages: purification of the body, discipline of the mind, awakening of the heart, mastery of the soul. Rituals simulated death and rebirth, plunging the seeker into darkness, only to lead them into light. The purpose was not spectacle, but transformation. The initiate emerged no longer the same lighter of heart, clearer of vision, aligned with truth. In our time, the outer temples may be lost, but the inner temple remains. You are the initiate. Your body is the altar, your breath the prayer, your heart the scales of Ma'at. To walk this path is to turn life itself into initiation. Every challenge becomes a trial, every relationship a mirror, every failure a chance for alchemy. The temple is not elsewhere, it is here. What then is the ultimate aim? Not power, not wealth, not even mystical experience. The aim is alignment with truth, harmony with the cosmic order. To be a scribe of the universe, as Thoth was to witness, to record, to embody the laws that sustain existence. The true emerald tablet is not hidden beneath the pyramids. It is written in the fabric of reality, waiting for eyes that can read it. This is why Thoth was remembered across cultures, across ages, not because he hoarded secrets, but because he offered a path that whispers to us even now. Awaken, remember, practice, align. The path does not end in knowledge, but in transformation. The one who studies the laws becomes the one who lives them. The one who lives them becomes the one who shines them forth, guiding others without words, simply by presence. And so we circle back to the beginning. The architect of civilization is not gone. His work continues through us. The tablets are not relics. Their laws breathe through our choices. Death is not an end. Consciousness continues, returning, refining, remembering. And practice is the bridge, the way we embody wisdom here and now, in the ordinary flow of days. You are not a spectator of this story. You are its continuation. The wisdom of Thoth does not belong to the past. It belongs to every soul willing to awaken. The choice is before you, as it was before every seeker in every age, to sleep in forgetfulness or to awaken in practice. So I leave you with this call to action. Do not merely listen, do not merely marvel. Begin. Sit in silence today and witness your thoughts. Notice the correspondences in your life. Shift one vibration. Transmute one polarity. Align with one rhythm. Plant one deliberate cause. Honor both energies within you. Small steps, repeated, awaken great transformation. You are the architect now. You are the scribe. You are the one who carries the emerald tablet within. And the great story of awakening consciousness continues through you. The story does not end with Thoth. It begins again with you. The emerald tablets are not relics of the past. They are invitations to the present. Their laws do not belong to dusty myths. They live in your breath, your choices, your thoughts. So do not let this be only a tale you heard and forgot. Let it be a spark. Tonight, sit in silence for 5 minutes and watch your thoughts. Tomorrow, look for the patterns in your life as mirrors of your inner state. Speak one word of kindness. Transmute one shadow into light. Take one step in rhythm with the greater flow. Small acts, repeated daily, awaken transformation. If this story stirred something within you, if you feel the echo of wisdom calling from across the ages, then share it. Let others remember too. Join the chain of seekers who carry forward the flame of knowledge. Because wisdom guarded is wisdom lost, but wisdom shared is wisdom reborn. You are not powerless. You are not random. You are the architect now. And the question remains, will you continue the work? The choice is yours.